Thank you all very much. Glenn, thank you for that beautiful and warm introduction. Rabbi Bronstein, thank you for that roundup of everything going on around here. You guys got a lot going on here. I think everybody's getting their money's worth for that. So, Rabbi Schneier, Simi, thank you so much for inviting me here. I've never been to Long Island before, so this is my first night in Long Island.
It's not all like this.
It's, well, it seems completely enchanting to me, and all I had were images from The Great Gatsby, and this seems even more charming than that. So, Glenn, I was going to suggest an easier introduction for me than that, because a few weeks ago, one of the books I wrote that you mentioned, We the Students, got banned in Texas, and that's a nice way to introduce me. And the very next day, Vladimir Putin banned me for life from Russia. So I sent out a statement saying that I was looking forward to getting to Texas as soon as possible for a book signing, and then to going to a free and democratic Russia right after I visit a free and democratic Ukraine when they beat Russia. So anyway, I don't have any big filibuster for you tonight, and I know it's basically a Q&A format, and then we're going to open it up for conversation. I've already talked to a handful of people who've already read my book, and so I don't want to punish them by rehearsing any of the themes or anything that goes on there. And I thank you all for expressing interest in it. And it's been very meaningful to me to have so many people read my book across the country and write me letters and emails and be in touch about it. We live in a time of great trauma, publicly and privately. We've lost more than 1 million people to COVID-19. We've lost hundreds of thousands of people in the opioid crisis. We are in a time of great despair, a mental health crisis for young people, as declared by the Surgeon General of the United States, with depression rampant and mental health maladies around the country, substance abuse, and behind all of it, we have a politics of profound polarization, division, demonization, and vilification. I live with that every day in the House of Representatives. It's not like what politics was like for me when I was in the Maryland State Senate, and even though I was, the majority whip, I was the Democratic whip, I had a whole bunch of Republican friends. More than 150 bills I put in passed with Republican support as well as Democratic support, and it's just not like that right now. Although I'm authorized to bring the greetings of my new best friend in Congress, Liz Cheney from Wyoming. So, you lose some friends, but you make some new friends along the way. So we're all in search of the hope. I know that. I love to invoke my dad, who used to say to us when we were growing up, when everything looks hopeless, you're the hope. So I derive a lot of hope from the people I'm meeting as I get to go out across the country and talk to people about what's happening. And I'm convinced that the vast majority of the country rejects authoritarianism, rejects lying as a way of public communication, rejects violence, rejects gun violence, rejects the idea that there's nothing we can do about the problems that confront our country. I'm just overwhelmed by where the people actually are. And I estimate maybe 4 or 5% of the people in the country are jerks, maybe. It's just not the majority of the people. It's just not. And we are not a racist country. We are not an anti-Semitic country. We are not a misogynistic country. We are not an immigrant bashing country. That's not who we are as a people. And my son Tommy was named after the great globe-trotting Democratic patriot Tom Paine, who arrived here in 1774, 2 years before the Declaration of Independence was written, 2 years before he wrote Common Sense. And Paine fell in love with the promise of America, this promise of this new land filling up with people. And he said that America would become a haven of refuge, an asylum to humanity, he said. Not an insane asylum, mind you, but a place of refuge for people fleeing from political, religious, and economic oppression all over the world. And he said that America would become a demonstration model to the world of what democracy could mean. The cause of America, he said, will become the cause of all mankind. And he really believed it. And he wasn't blind to the flaws and the imperfections of the country. We didn't begin with Lincoln's tantalizing vision of government of the people, by the people, for the people. We were a slave republic of white male property owners over the age of 21. But the framers, Jefferson specifically, planted in the Declaration of Independence all of the ideals that future generations of America would hold up and then concretize and realize through their own commitment to the unalienable rights of the people, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the idea that all men, and we would say today women, are created equal, and the idea that government rests legitimately only on the consent of the governed. And so it has been successive generations of Americans committed to those ideals that have made us a more perfect union. And today, even with January 6th, and even with the division and the polarization, still we are the world's greatest multiracial, multi-religious, multi-ethnic constitutional democracy. And I just want to make sure that we fortify this great democracy and we keep growing. Because Tocqueville said in Democracy in America that in this country, the democratic rights, the voting rights of the people are always either shrinking and shriveling away, or they're growing and they're expanding. And we've been in a contractionary mode, and we've got to get back on the growth track so that this will indeed continue to become a more perfect union and a demonstration model to the rest of the world. Because today we know that there are very dark currents of racism and anti-Semitism and authoritarianism flowing throughout the world. And all of the dictators and the despots, the bullies and the autocrats and the kleptocrats have found each other. They've all found each other, whether it's Putin in Russia or Orban in Hungary with his illiberal state and his anti-Semitism, or President Xi in China, or Duterte, I guess it's Marcos now, in the Philippines, or El-Sisi in Egypt. You name it, they have found each other, and all of them are betting on, they are investing in the destruction of democracy in America. Because what will be the hope for democracy and human rights around the world if America goes down? So that's why I'm out here, and that is why I'm fighting every single day for this extraordinary dream of democratic self-government that has really been a beacon to people all over the world. And I thank you for checking out my book and relating, I hope, in some way to the story that it tells, both personally of the darkest and most awful, tragic thing that has ever happened to my family, or publicly, this shocking thing that took place on January 6th and this authoritarian assault on our institutions. When it all started, I went out, and I've got a friend who's a professor of classics at Howard University, and I asked him whether there was a Greek god of trauma. And he said, no, there was no Greek god of trauma. So I tried to imagine one, a god kind of like Janus, the god that looks backwards and forwards at the same time. And I imagined that the god of trauma would be just the sneakiest, most evil of gods who could cheat you out of everything that you love and what is most precious to you in life, and steal from you that which makes your life worth living. And then the god of trauma turns around, and just as you're about to give up on everything, the god of trauma offers you a connection to the rest of the world and to other people far more profound than anything you ever imagined was possible, because you're able to connect with other people's sorrow and other people's struggles, because that's part of the human condition too. And so if you say to the god of trauma, as I think of it, well, I see what you mean. You can take what's most precious to me, but you can connect me in a profound way to other people. And it sounds interesting, but I'd rather not take that bargain. That's the catch. And the god of trauma says, well, it's not up to you. That is in the nature of the human condition. So anyway, I'm happy to talk about the book, and I'm happy to talk about the country. And I thank all of you for coming tonight and for inviting me to the great Long Island. So,